Hi guys, we are challenge 5. We looked at skills gap analysis on road sites using data from the A14 team. Our team consisted of me, Keita, Emil, Alex and Dottie. We developed a new skills model based on keyword searches to identify the distribution of skills across the A14 projects. The commercial value of which was that by profiling the project workforce, we can identify gaps in skills and create pipelines for future projects of similar nature. When looking at our project, we tackled our data, challenge and approach. Our data was quite inconsistent and therefore lacked a lot of information for further analysis. This meant we had to find different means to enrich our dataset. Looking at our challenge, it was to identify shortages by site, identify geographical and demographical segmentation of job roles, and visualize relationships between skills and age and postcode, because the other sort of factors like gender and ethnicity wasn't there. We aim to visualize relationships between skills and age and postcode. We also looked at trade reliability, where we had to turn to distance travelled as our main indicator due to a lack of data in churn and access control history. Our approach, we developed skill families by manually using keyword searches to categorize job titles. We enhanced our postcode data and bucketed workforce into age groups to understand the relationship between skills and location.
Yoshi, so this is a one-stop shop for all of our data, and we have some kind of mega trend data at the top. We've got average ages, we've got skill groups, and just a bit of summarization to understand kind of what our data is on a page. In terms of what really stands out, after we've gone through our skill grouping exercise, we've noticed operative makes up about 35% of workforce, which is actually quite a large number. It's also represented significantly across all of the age categories, and there doesn't seem to be anything specific that stands out when it comes to the distance traveled of operatives. Again, from a supplier's perspective, everyone supplies operatives. And I guess the opportunity here is really to understand a little bit more those operatives that come from really far afield, whether there's any specialist skills in those sections which are warranting the distance, and if not, potentially consolidating that sourcing of operatives from suppliers which are a little bit closer geographically. There are many other more interesting things, but in the interest of time, I'll pass over for some location analysis insights.
Hello, my name is Emil. I'm going to pass through the location analysis. On the right, as you can see, is the map. On the left is the tabular representation of skill groups, broken down by average miles from the A14 and the standard deviation, which we've extracted from the Google API. As you can see, per average, the distances traveled between home and the A14 are more than the standard deviation calculation. Therefore, on average, a supervisor is traveling up to 30 miles more to the A14 than standard. This insight provides a lot of much needed conversations such as employee well-being, cost of expenses on travel and accommodation, and the geographical footprint. One of the main insights from the data is the largest group of employees, the operatives, which when expanded, it showcases how many operators are classed under the job title and the average distance, one of which travels up to 511 miles to site. This again poses the same questions about employee well-being, expenses, and geographical well-being. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass you over to Dottie for some skill.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dottie. So what you see here is that it's a representation of the age analysis across the job roles that we're finding on the A14 project. The workforce, as you see here, is leaning towards an aging population. So we're needing to identify if there's any skill gaps in the future. So what we see here is if we focus on the health and safety work skill, we find that 59.6% are at the age over 45. So we see this the skill at most at risk. So if we're looking towards the future and upcoming projects for the next 10 years, the A428, A303, LTC and A1 having the combined value of 11.4 billion, which would need to be resourced by 8 times the amount. So we're looking at to upskill over 1,000 workers across these projects.
Do you see any issues that will arise from grouping skill roles together?
Hi, it's Alex here. There are some potential issues in grouping skills However, what's really important is to ensure that the original data, the integrity of the original data is maintained and preserved, so that we can actually revert back following allocation to a particular skill family, understand what the audit trail is, and how we arrive to that conclusion. Of course, I think in a couple of these places, so including the location analysis, when we're looking at operatives, there are plenty of examples of roles that might potentially fit elsewhere, or they are significantly different to others. In that particular scenario, we were comfortable to kind of tag it in this way, given the time constraints. However, machine learning techniques and insights from subject matter experts could be used in the future to understand where certain roles might fit better, if not under the initial or original allocation. So ultimately speaking, there's this type of tool would serve well those who are making strategic decisions, and given that we preserve the hierarchical modeling, we would have tactical or operative focus at a level lower, of which we have visibility. So there are some issues, but I believe they can be addressed by having the right hierarchy in place and also preserving the original data.
How applicable is this for other industries?
I think it's very applicable. The ability to visualize personnel spread and the skills roles ignites a discussion that the business might have been neglecting. This, for example, applies to charities and charity workers who are hardly related to construction. Charities often move a lot of personnel around depending on their skills and distance to site, whereas this also applies to strategic workforce planning and understanding who the employer might need in the future, like we've presented the H&S role.